predictions for next year's real estate market, and that's the plan for today. So obviously, nobody's got a crystal ball, but there are some factors that anyone can watch to help predict direction in a real estate market. So we can start with the economy in Panama. Here's what's good about the economy in Panama, especially compared to other countries around the world. Panama has not had all of the employment related subsidies. What's the right word for it? Basically, in the US, for example, the incentives to not work. Panama has not had that at all. There are some social programs that help a bit of relief for people, but not to the extent of incentivizing them to not work. So, for that reason, people are still looking for work. The economy has definitely contracted because of COVID. So, our unemployment is still in the double digits. That said, people are actively getting back to work. There has been new job creation over the last couple months. And I think that next year, if the trend continues, we should be back on track to see, 2 to 3% GDP growth based on both local job creation, companies scaling up again on hiring. And of course, that all leads to people moving out from their parents' house or upgrading or buying versus renting. So I think that is one positive thing for Panama, especially compared to the rest of the world, which at least in the US, folks are seeing massive shortages on the labor side, which could lead to shortages on the product side. The Panama Canal, by the way, just released their 12-month figures, and they had their best year in the last 10 years. Go figure. So world trade is back. Global commerce is definitely cranking, and that obviously benefits Panama to the extent of Panama toll revenues, which create more money for infrastructure projects, more money for school and hospital projects, more money for business incentives. So all of that is a good thing. And I think this is a good time to mention, guys, that Panama is an economy affected by the world. Obviously, all economies are a part of a world economy, but Panama more so, A, because we import a lot, B, because we have a lot of expats moving here. We have a lot of multinational businesses located here disproportionately compared to other countries in the world. I mean, hey, Panama population is about 4 million. And when you've got almost half foreigners, including, Colombians, half is probably an exaggeration. It's not 2 million foreigners, but it's close. So that means that, folks are looking at Panama as an alternative. And we're talking about high net worth people all the way down to politically persecuted Venezuelans, people that are fleeing Nicaragua, sort of the lower, well, really all levels of socioeconomic wealth. Point being, socioeconomic status. Point being, guys, is global factors affect the real estate market. So back to some predictions. So unemployment is making its way down, which is good. Global commerce is starting to pick up again, which is good. So that's score 2 for Panama in terms of the potential of the real estate market being affected. I think another factor is topped out markets in the States. And I don't follow markets in Europe, but I mean, the Dow is up, 20% this year. Housing is up almost in all markets in the US, not up in Panama. That's interesting because investors generally don't like to get in at the top of the market of any market if you can help it. So Panama still represents I wouldn't say depressed market, but I would say a recovering market. So there's still some sellers who have not been able to sell. I think some of those will be gradually sort of churned out of the market just by a function of more people coming to Panama. With the return of global travel, we're seeing hotels reporting. We manage a few Airbnbs as well. We're seeing indications that this coming busy season, which is generally from about January to April, is going to be gangbusters. Like all of the Airbnbs we manage outside of the city are fully booked from like now until April. I'm seeing reports from a great company called Panama Relocation. Uh, what are they called? Yeah, Panama Relocation, Jackie Lang. Um, I mean, their tours are booked for like 6 months in advance. So obviously, that's an indicator. Those people generally tend to take about 12 months to buy. So we'll probably see those results the following year because it's generally, I mean, some people buy as soon as they come down, but more so it's folks that are they come down once to see Panama. They come down again to look at real estate, and maybe they'll come down a third time to purchase, right? And then the purchase process could take 2 to 3 months. So that generally means about 1 year lag time on first timers coming to Panama who might ultimately buy. But there's going to be more first timers this year than there has been in many years. Why? Well, a couple reasons. I think low population density is a big one. You go out to the beaches in Panama, you can still be the only guy walking the beach on a Tuesday morning in Coronado, which is like our most popular sort of Panama City beach destination. It's amazing. Granted, on the weekends, it gets a bit busier, but that low population density, I think, is going to be a trend. Panama is definitely not like, Hong Kong or Singapore, where there's, I don't know what the figure is, 50 people per square foot or something crazy, 1.5 people per square foot. I don't know what the statistic is, but the point is that Panama is spread out and people are looking for that due to the health pandemic and also just quality of life. I mean, you don't want to be having to fight for a spot at the beach. Sometimes it's fun, and we have those beaches where you have to fight for a spot. It's fun people watching. The point is, I think that is in our favor. Inflation is an issue in the States. They're seeing higher food prices. I think it's probably an issue in Europe. We're starting to see that a bit in Panama, but the fact that we are still somewhat economically not recovered means that, at least in terms of restaurants, maybe their input prices or their costs are going up to acquire the food. Labor costs have not gone up like they are in the States. So that's keeping rents have not gone up in the last few years. So that's those major costs, labor and real estate, have not increased to the tune that they have in the States and Europe, meaning that we're not going to see nearly as much inflation as we will in other parts of the world. That's good for Panama, obviously, because it will become cheap again. Panama, for the longest time, I mean, I moved to Panama in 2007 when you could get a beer at a restaurant for $1, and you could get a pretty solid lunch at a restaurant for, the same restaurant that you're now paying $12 for a good meal. I was probably paying 8 back then, right? So what is that? 50% inflation, 40%, something like that, 8 to 12. So point being is, as inflation picks up in the rest of the world, Panama will benefit because Panama will be comparatively cheaper because Panama does not have as many inflationary factors, namely wages and real estate. So let's talk about other good things, and then I will talk about some concerning things about Panama that could make my rosy outlook not so rosy. Sticking to the good because I'm still a real estate guy. So as tourism picks up, obviously that is good for the real estate market, both in short-term rentals, i.e. 45 days in the city, or one day outside of the city. We do have some rental restrictions here still in the city for Airbnbs, but again, back to what I said earlier, more tourists, more eyes on properties, more properties purchased, people going back to work, more money available to purchase and or rent. So we are seeing the cruise ship terminal that's going to be ready in the next couple of months. We're seeing a successful come get vaccinated in Panama. Neighbors, Peru, uh, Colombia, Brazil. You don't want to deal with getting vaccinated in your home country? Come on over here. It's a super random tourism initiative that I love, but it's working. Panama is also admired by its neighbors right now. We have some friends from Honduras, also some friends from El Salvador, and even to an extent Costa Rica, although there's a bit of a rivalry between Panama and Costa Rica forever. Obviously, when we play soccer, we're 10 times better than them because, boo, Ticos, just kidding. Um, Panama is very much in vogue in Central America and to an extent South America in terms of still being perceived in a very positive light from a safety standpoint, from a political stability standpoint, from an ease of getting in and out and ease of doing business. And that's always been the case. But as people start to get back to being in a position to consider moving, we're going to be seeing a big push. We were already seeing it from Peru. We've been seeing it from South Africa. We're going to see that market come back. And that market has been dead for the last 2 years, which is basically expats relocating en masse from countries not in North America or not in Europe. So everybody else, South America, Central America, Asia, we were kind of flirting with China. They've established a couple big banks here. I think that relationship is still just getting started. Hey, Sage, thank you for your comment. It's nice not to be just speaking into the ether here. So your question was, long term, do you think long term the Panama Canal will be negative impacted? Could be, man. I mean, I think as the Arctic ice caps melt, the world will have some pretty big problems. When a city like New York City or a city even like Panama City is underwater, Panama Canal is going to be the least of our concerns. But yeah, you're right. I mean that is a. I think the Arctic ice, the Arctic trade channel. So you guys probably already know, but it's like right now Panama is the best way or the cheapest way to get goods from Asia all the way to the east coast of the US and from Europe all the way to east coast or west coast of west coast of the US, right? Because you just kind of you instead of going all the way around South America, right? Anyway, so the Panama Canal is a big deal for that reason. But what Sage is asking is what happens when people can just go up, through Russia, up sort of by the Arctic and get down to the East Coast that way, or, or from Europe, go up through there and get to the West Coast that way. And that becomes a competition, right? It's like for sure. And I don't know, commercially when that becomes viable, like how much more sea levels have to rise or how much more Arctic ice has to melt and how that will impact the rest of the world. But you're absolutely right. And I'm sure people at the ACP have run scenarios, like as 6 inches of ice melt, then we potentially could lose 5% of business. I've never seen those numbers, but you're absolutely right. I just don't know if that will be the least of our problems. Given all the other issues with a global melt and the subsequent rising of water levels, right? Another fun one to watch is crypto, which is becoming a lot more mainstream. Panama has always sort of attracted like kind of an alternate investor, sort of a plan B, almost the same guys that are holding gold when all hell breaks loose in their respective markets. Maybe they have a Panama property that they're just sort of sitting on. Maybe it's not going up in value. Maybe they're not getting huge ROI, 2-3%. They see it as a stable economy. It's on the dollar, so it's not going to get too crazy. It's politically stable, so it's not going to get too crazy. As more people make money in crypto, those same crypto buyers are the same kind of people to look at Panama. I don't know what the correlation will be at the end of the day, but we've done talks. Aldo Antinori is a genius on crypto. We've got a lot of very smart people following crypto, building a crypto community. I am super, white bread on my crypto investment. I got a little Bitcoin, a little Ethereum, but that's it. It's So I don't study it. I don't know about it, but it's a hedge for me too, right? I mean, I own my property in Panama, but I think that the the rise in crypto acknowledgement is not the right word. The rise in crypto acceptance and the overall just sort of trade in crypto, the growth in people that are holding and using and investing in cryptocurrencies will benefit Panama. I don't know how developers are accepting crypto now. Sellers are open to crypto now. So would those people have bought a couple of years ago? There's definitely newfound wealth being created in crypto. The kind of 28-year-olds that like living in a place like Panama because it's fun for 28-year-olds and it doesn't get cold, right? And those guys didn't have $1 million 2 years ago, and now they do. So maybe they're also looking at Hong Kong, and maybe they're also looking at Buenos Aires, but and Mexico City, and New York. I don't know, but Panama will benefit from that. So some issues that we always are watching in Panama, sort of hard to measure. Of course, corruption sucks. It makes things more expensive because you're ending up, paying more for a road because the politician, is getting his kickback. That's always a damper. And that doesn't feel like it's going away anytime soon. So that's a challenge. It doesn't necessarily affect the real estate market, but sure it does because it's a macro. Um, Guillermo, for sure. And thank you, Sage, for your question. So Guillermo asked, "What people taking Bitcoin for real estate payment?" Absolutely. 100%, not all of them, but we have a broker so that, you know, people that are comfortable, including a third party, i.e. someone that could help with in this case, Bitcoin transaction, such that it's apples to apples and you're not affected by the market. You put it in, maybe it's stable coin for the down payment, and then it just gets released. We have the mechanisms and have done deals in Bitcoin already, and we're definitely not the only ones to do it. Developers are getting open to it. Sellers are. So yes, for sure, Guillermo, they are. It's not mainstream yet per se. As soon as Amazon starts taking Bitcoin, sky's the limit. But that hasn't happened yet. Although Elon Musk loves to play with our emotions and say those kind of things. So what else negative could happen that would damper the party in Panama? As the US dollar declines, that's generally positive for dollar-based assets because it gets cheaper for people to purchase. I think if the US has some major political issues, on the one hand, it'll be good for Panama because there'll be more people wanting to get out. That has historically been, Panama equities. We bring a lot of buyers down from the US. They sort of, they contact us. We've got a lot of Americans, over the years. We've done a lot of business with folks from the US, but so sort of political refugees from the US that are like, I'm getting out of here. We're seeing a lot more of those, Republicans, Democrats, libertarians, the full span. Um, US stock market crashes, US housing market crashes for whatever reason. That probably won't be good for Panama because obviously a lot of wealth will be lost, a lot of disposable income that might have been used to purchase your beach house in Panama, or, diversify your real estate portfolio in Panama. People might not do it if that wealth disappears. Can't predict that market. Can't even predict the real estate market in Panama. I'm just saying what to watch. So obviously watch hotel vacancy in Panama, right? Watch unemployment in Panama, job creation in Panama, global travel restrictions or easing of global travel restrictions. There's been a lot of pent up demand. We have so many people coming in December. Will that be enough to push up the real estate prices? Probably not, at least for another like 6 months. If we have a crazy busy season, which is from January to Oh, Sage, great point. Let me get to that. If we have I don't remember what I was talking about. I want to answer Sage's question. Recent changes to Friendly Nations visa program. We're not super excited about those. Sure, the politicians got with the developers and told them, hey, let's make it so that you have to buy a $300,000 property to get your visa now. And the developers are like, yeah, we'll support that. And the politicians are like, yeah, the real estate market will blow up. What they didn't realize is there are a lot of people that rent before they buy. There are a lot of people that would rather spend 200,000 than 300,000. The good news is, Sage, um, that Panama is kind of wishy-washy, and the laws change with the wind and the seasons. So I think there will be an amendment to the Friendly Nations visa. I'm not privy to it. Ricardo Faraulo is the guy to talk to. He's on the inside with the politicians, and he helps write the laws. He's a lawyer that we've worked with for more than 10 years. Hey, Randy, thanks for joining us, pal. I love to hear where folks are watching from, too. So, yeah, that will have a negative impact, I think. We will see less people. Now, the good news is that you can still stay in Panama on a 180-day tourist visa, go home for 3 days, come back, right? It's inconvenient. Go to Costa Rica or Colombia. Both great places to go for 3 days. Let me tell you, I did my visa runs when I first moved to Panama. Um, so, but the Friendly Nations visa did bring a very nice wave of people from all over the world, from those 30 countries or whatever that are on the list. So, yeah, I think it will have a negative short-term impact until they realize what happens. So, yeah, hey, Michael from Franklin, Tennessee. I used to live in Johnson City, the moonshine capital of the United States, but I wasn't 21. So, yeah, let's go back to any predictions. I'd love questions. I mean, it's predictions, right? So who knows? But I think it's important to watch factors that could play out in real estate markets, and a topped out U.S. housing market and topped out equities market will definitely are helping the Panama real estate market now as people seek value in a market that's been flat for years, and could be very detrimental if those U.S. markets crash. Okay, so Tunjaye, real estate changes to expats from the Caribbean. Friendly Nations visa is not for Caribbean natives. I know, boo. We get a lot of people from Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, where else in the Caribbean? A little bit of BVIs. So not that I'm aware of, sir, but still the 180-day visa is very much in effect. Yeah. What's wrong with moving to Panama? Oh, all right. Let's go to this one. So I want to do a separate Facebook Live on that, but why do people move back? People come to Panama with high expectations, thinking that everybody speaks English, thinking that it's really cheap, thinking that they love the heat, thinking that it's super easy to fly back to a small town in Portland or Oregon. I think that there are still misconceptions about Panama. That it's cheap. It's not super cheap. Rents are getting cheaper. Food is cheap if you live in New York City or San Francisco, but not necessarily if you live in rural Florida. Grocery prices are a bit more expensive than we don't get $1.99 chicken breasts in Panama. So yeah, I want to save that one because I think it's a really important topic, but I want to do a special sort of give that one some thought. Try before you buy. Come down here, ask people what they don't like about Panama. Go into expat groups; they're terrific. Kate McNally, hi, nice to see you. You think the increase in crime will have a negative impact on tourism? For sure. Now, it always would. Now, Are we seeing it in Panama? A little bit, but not as much as we were expecting. You still don't want to go to downtown Caledonia at 1 o'clock on a Friday night with your Nikon camera, you know, saying, "Where's the nearest bar?" Because you'll probably get mugged or at least approached, and it's still pretty safe down here. I get that from folks visiting. Is you still get that vibe at a mall or in a restaurant or even in a bar that you're not feeling like you have to always keep your billfold in your front pocket. Although it's never a bad idea if you're in a big crowd, just because in life, you never feel that you're kind of getting like scoped out. Obviously, never get in a taxi with another person. If there's another person in the back, especially at night. So if we see a spike in crime, Kate, then we will absolutely be affected. But I think a spike in crime in other parts of the world still work to our benefit, where we are still perceived as and generally are as safe, like are safe. You know what I mean? So yeah, great question. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to see you. Kate is a Panameña, who I met many years ago. Um, so, guys, I mean, this is getting long. I could go on with my crystal ball. It's always fun to look backwards and say, see, that worked out. That didn't work out. But yeah, just I think generally, if you're watching certain indicators, you can try to get in front of the game. Obviously, infrastructure development, you want to be next to where they're building the highway in 5 years, right? But you might have to wait for 4 years of construction, those kind of things. And real estate's the same game all over the world. Panama is a bit different. Just like every market is a bit different, right? So yeah, there's 27 minutes of predictions for you guys. Thank you for your questions. We always respond to questions also after we do these broadcasts. We being my whole team, who are awesome. You guys are in great hands with anybody you work with from Panama Equity. So thanks for tuning in and for your questions and for checking in. Next episode will absolutely be why not to move or invest in Panama. I think it's an important topic that will save everybody a lot of headaches, but it's still a magical place. And I think 2022 is going to be awesome in Panama. That's my takeaway, just from what we're seeing on the street. So anyway, guys, have a great Tuesday morning. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, happy Fiestas Patrias. We're still celebrating down here.